Hi guys, you wanna do a quick mechanical know-how check? Did you know that your aim is heavily affected by your movement? What if I told you that micro-correcting is much easier done by movement rather than using your mouse? Did you also know that moving better will allow you to win a lot more 1v1s? If you know that, then awesome, you understand the basics. If you didn't, then let's talk about that. Let's start by laying out the ways we can use movement to your advantage. We can use movement as a combat tool, we can use it as an info gathering tool, and we can also use it to improve our positioning. Let's break down combat movement first. The mindset of using combat movement should be that you want to make yourself as hard to hit as possible, while also helping yourself have an easier time while aiming. Skills that include combat movement are counter-strafing, wide picking, also known as swinging, narrow picking, short strafe or deadzone abuse. Let's start with counter-strafing. I wanna break down a myth first. No, counter-strafing in the classical sense of stopping to shoot faster and be accurate is a myth. There's a person called MyieB, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name, that made a video to verify this claim. I'll link it down in the description, but the TLDR is that it will always take 8 frames or 0.30 seconds no matter what to stop and be accurate. However, you should still learn to counter-strafe. This is because there is one more aspect that is way more important than being accurate, which is control. When you're counter-strafing, you feel the agent. I know that sounds kinda weird, but think about it. You have full control of your character if you counter-strafe. Your movement feels a lot more deliberate, so to speak. Okay, now you know why you should counter-strafe. I'm gonna sum up in a very short list how you should counter-strafe, some things to keep in mind, and then I'm gonna play some clips on how I do it. Number 1. Make sure that you only use A and D. Using other keys will make counter-strafing a lot harder on yourself, and it will also make you move slower, which means you are much easier to hit. In order to actually counter-strafe, you need to press the opposite key of the one you're currently holding. If you move to the right, that means you're holding D, so you wanna press A to move to the left. And if you wanna do the opposite, you just mirror it. If you're moving to the left, you wanna move to the right. That's pretty much about it. Another thing to keep in mind is that you wanna counter-strafe as far from the wall as possible. Do not counter-strafe while you are close to the wall, because the enemy will see you first.
Return to dust. I got the spike.
Got you.
Let's talk about picking. There are 3 ways to pick. Wide picking, also known as swinging, narrow picking, and jiggle picking into either of these. Now, when should you wide pick and when should you narrow pick? You generally want to wide pick when you want to surprise your opponent, when you know where they are. However, this pick is very unreliable, especially if the enemy has good crosshair placement. So I wouldn't really recommend it unless you are also swinging with a teammate. So that means that you mostly want a narrow pick. The reason is simple, it's just a whole lot more reliable. Your player model will show up a lot less time on the enemy screen, which means that it's more likely that he will miss his shot. Narrow picking also allows you to clear angles a lot safer. If you are always wide picking, you usually expose yourself to multiple angles, which never happens if you are picking narrow. Jiggle picking into either narrow or wide pick is quite situational, but one consistent thing is that you will always throw off your opponent. Picking like this is usually great for 1v1 situations, but other than that it doesn't really have that many uses. Do you hate getting run and gunned? Perfect, it's time to understand how to use it to your advantage. You may have noticed that the slower you move, the more accurate your shots are. This is where the term deadzone accuracy comes in. It's a point where your shots are 100% accurate, because you're below a certain movement threshold. You can think of it like speed limits. If you go around 30 miles per hour, you are not penalized. However, if you go above that, you may get fines. You can apply the same concept in Valorant. If you are slow enough, you keep your shots to being near perfect. Who knows, maybe you'll become so good at it that you will be the next MW0. Also check out his channel, by the way. Last combat movement is crouching. There really isn't that much to say about it. You only really wanna use it in 2 situations. 1. You need help with recoil. 2. You wanna mess up the enemy crosshair placement. The main reason on why you shouldn't crouch all that much is because you become a sitting duck and you're a lot easier to hit. Using movement information to gather info is done in 2 ways. Jiggle picking and jump picking. Jump picking is preferable. It's a lot harder to pull off, but at the same time it's a lot safer than jiggle picking. I will link a video on how to do it mechanically, because Sentinel's Dapper already has a video on it and I think he explains it pretty well. The biggest benefit of jump picking is that it's a lot safer to bait up shots, and you will also see where your enemies are at, so you get higher quality info. Jiggle picking is very easy to execute. You get up to a wall, you pull your knife out, and you wanna pick about half of your body. The main idea is that the enemy will probably shoot at you, and that's how you get the info. If you pick too wide, you might actually die, and you don't even get to see your enemy most of the time. That's why I highly recommend that you learn jump picking instead. You can also improve your positions by using movement. These are called skill jumps. They are not actually that hard to pull off because you just need to know how to line up and to time it. However, they can greatly impact the outcome of the round if you use them correctly. These are scattered throughout the game. Some of them are more useful than others. You'll just have to find out which one suits you. These are all the movement techniques in Valorant. However, I haven't mentioned the most important thing. How do you actually improve on them? Let's start with intel movement first. All you really need to do is jump in a custom game and repeat the movements all over again. There's nothing else to it, it's just mechanical. And in order to get better at mechanical stuff, all you really need to do is repeat it over and over again. Skill jumps have the exact same principle. You go in a custom game and you search for one, and then you practice it until you get it consistent. However, practicing combat movement is a little bit tougher. However, you can use a two-step process that will make things a lot easier. Pick one specific combat movement, however make sure that the first one is Counter-strafing, because that one sets up all the other movement techniques. After you decided on what to practice, play 30 minutes of deathmatch focusing only on that moment, for about 1 week on each skill, and after you're done, you should see a lot of improvement on your movement. And that's really about it. Movement is a mechanical skill at the end of the day, so the best thing to do is just to practice it over and over again. It doesn't matter how much theory you know if you don't put the practice in.